Hello folks, today I'm going to be taking a look at Mantic Games' Northern Alliance army for Kings of War. Alright, this is the Northern Alliance army for Kings of War by Mantic. It contains lovely Ice Blade, along with two of the new Frostclaw Riders, 20 half-elves, and 20 of the Clansmen. It's a big old box. There's also Btic Points. So, there is a start collecting guide, which is a 12-page guide, bit of the backstory of the Northern Alliance, how Talnar ended up founding Chill. You scan a QR code there to get more information. I believe that is all of the backstory, which is like 180 pages worth from the rulebook, the 3rd edition rulebook. They put up online, so if people just get the companion app for the rules, so they've just got a digital version, they still have access to all of the backstory and lore of Panathor. Why collect them? How are they different from other races? Vanguard. A gallery of some of the other figures in there. And then how to assemble. So that's quite nice. Including puns. To brilliant. Oh dear. Basing, so it explains multi-basing and how you don't need to use all models to get the same size, which is nice. And then battle tactics, so how you should play them in game. This is really good for somebody just getting into Kings of War, because some new armies, you get an idea of how dwarves are meant to be stocky, stout warriors who stand back and shoot with a load of cannon and then get in and finish people off, but they're slow and that sort of thing. But then when you come to whole new armies that are very IP specific, so the Northern Alliance are a collection of outcasts from dwarf, elf, human society, including half-elves and all sorts of other weird monsters and animals. It can be difficult to get a handle of how they should play. So yes, that's really good. And the new Order March special rule, which is great as well. Especially good for the dwarves, because it means you can really push forward. They're not quite as slow and stumbling as they ordinarily would be. And then some next steps, so things you can possibly pick up after this box set. So Tundra Wolves, which are really good chaff. Really thick chaff, I think is the phrase. Frostfang Cavalry, some of the best cav in the game. And then a Frost Giant. It's a giant. They are what giants are. The box itself is absolutely jam-packed. So we have SPRUs for the Frostclaws. We have 4 of those, although it is actually really 2 SPRUs like that. So if I flip it over, each set of SPRUs, so this singular / 2 SPRUs, will make 1 Frostclaw Rider. Although you have plenty of options. So options with the rocks that the bird sits on. You only have 1 body, but there's 2 head options. So beak open, beak closed. 4 sets of wings. 2 dwarves with 2 heads, and then two different weapon options, so they can either have these spears or they can have the ice grenades that they can chuck down from the back of their birdies. So they're really, really nice. There are 4 of these new elf SPRUs. So all numbered up, or lettered and numbered, so you can build them easily. Look like a lot of options. So a ton of melee weapons for the berserkers, and then bow and arrow, and some quivers for the Icekin hunters. Overall looks very nice indeed. And then we have 2 bags of Clansmen. So these are an older kit. Say older, not particularly old, but this was before they moved to Poland for production. So 2 SPRUs makes 10 individual Clansmen. You can see here we have heads, bodies and torsos are all 1, a selection of shields and a couple of hand weapons, and then a backpack with a big set of antlers on it. Kind of fun. Big chunky models. And then we have the weapon arms. So this contains javelins and hand weapons, some more shields, and a couple of snow foxes up the top as well. The pieces are lettered, so I don't know if you'll be able to see that. B goes with body B on the snow fox front. Likewise, some of the hand weapons and shields are 2-part. I think it's on the other SPRU. Yeah, it is. So we've an A and B shoulder to elbow, and an A and B shield. So as you can see, there's actually pairs, so it's 5 pairs of bodies, 5 pairs of shields, individual heads, and then 5 pairs of each arm type, and then a couple of the additional pieces to mix and match. Finally, for the models, we have a hero. This is Ice Blade in resin. So 3 SPRUs, bit of flashing on them, nothing particularly untoward. A bit more on these. No build instructions for this, but then the pieces are keyed. You can see there, specific, or rather square pegs go into the square holes, so you should only be able to really fit them in one direction. But these will need to clean up first. So there's also the wooden bases for each of the units. So 3mm MDF. Let's get them all built up and we'll come back and have another look. Alright, back and all built up. We're going to start with the hero, the Ice Blade. Fairly simple build. There's a few things to look out for. Firstly, I've not taken it off yet because I wanted to show it. There at the leg, that's actually another SPRU gate. You can see there's a little hole in behind. So that actually needs to be taken off and then a bit more cleanup done to keep the leg clean. You can see it a bit more there. It's one that's probably easily missed, and you may end up with a, well, if you end up painting it as more fur, it won't really make a massive difference, but just one that isn't massively noticeable. Overall, really nice model. Slight air bubble on this front toe, just at the boot, but that's easily filled. The rest of the model went together very cleanly. I would suggest fitting the arms first, and then putting these daggers on the back, particularly this arm. Just getting it in position was a little bit fiddly because I put these on first. That's on me. As you can see, she is mid-leap off the rock, which means the connection on this is actually very slim or slight. It's barely touching at all, but this foot is keyed in to the ground, so that's good. You can see a bit of a mold line on the rock running up the way. I didn't even bother cleaning that off because it's a rock. Rocks are fractal by nature and split in regular patterns along lines, so when that's painted up you won't actually notice that anyway. Really, really nice sculpt, really nice bit of resin as well. So just a little bit of cleanup to do. For those interested, our half-elf berserking ice blade here comes in around 36 mil to eye level and about 42 to the top of her little antlers that she's wearing as a crown. She also has a bucket load of attacks in game, so she's a duelist. 6 attacks, and she gets to double those against individuals. So yes, like all of the elfkin or half-elfkin, she's a bit brutal and really nice. Speaking of elfkin, so the plastics, I've done a setup like the berserkers, so like the ice blade herself, and I've done a set like the icekin hunters with the ranged weapons. As you can see, this comes on a 40 by 100 mil base. Theoretically there should be 10 on this, but with the cloaks and the like, even having 6, or in this case as I have 5, still fills it fairly comprehensively, which means those 20 elves could actually do the work of substantially more if you just get your hands on some other bases, whether you pick up some MDF bases or cut some from plasticard or the like yourself. Heads and arms are all interchangeable, despite the numbering system on the box, on the SPRU. You will need it for the cloaks and for the quivers on these hunters, but otherwise you can mix and match to heart's content, so it's very versatile little set of elves, or half-elves in this case. So that's one of the new plastics. The other new plastic are these dwarf riding giant burbs. So the Frostclaw Riders, we have 1 and 2, and these are on a 50 by 150 mil base, so large cavalry. They, like I say, 1 core body and then options, so you can have your squawker or you can have your muted version, and really nice detail on them. Pretty much throughout. You lose a little bit of detail on wing edges, but the actual feather texture and the like themselves is very nice. Should paint up a treat. 2 bodies and 2 heads per bird, which means you're going to end up with a load of extra dwarf without burbs if you have a few of these in your army, which means you could start building a dwarf Clansmen unit, or trucking these into something else. There are options therein. The birds themselves, our smaller wingspan is 80 mil wide. The larger wingspan is 120. I know you can't see that, but it is. So, a substantial size of bird, and then height. 50 mil to the top of the bird's head on the smaller stone, and so that's 63 to the top on the larger. You don't actually have to use these stones to mount the birds. You could actually just do it with brass rod or a flight stand or whatever you want, if you don't want them to all be swooping down out of a rocky outcrop. But they are really nice plastic kit. Great detail. Surfing dwarves, chucking ice grenades at people's heads, which is always fun. The last thing you get then are the human clansmen. These can be run as regular human clansmen with hand weapons, or you can run them as huscarls in regiments only. But again, nice figures, really nice sculpts, plenty of fur and leather on them, as they're all sort of clustered together. Again, you could squeeze an extra couple of units out if you don't go for the full 10 on a base. And to be fair with these, 10 on a base is tricky. If you're playing huscarls, though, you will need to supply your own base because they are 125 by 50, because they're the larger base size. But really nice for the infantry. You can also make a version that has javelins with piercing. I've popped a little snow fox onto the front. And again, nice figures. Decent amount of options in there so you can mix and match so they won't look too identical when you start playing with multiple units of them. I did try this guy out at the end. So he actually, if I pop him off, he has a barbarian head and arm from Frostgrave, from Northstar. So these are a little bit, well, they're not a little bit, these are bigger than Northstar's barbarians. So the arms are a little bit shorter, but the head's a good size still if you do fancy mixing and matching. If you go in the other direction, they have a touch of the old ape arms. But yeah, nevertheless, a good set of models. And if you save up your snow foxes, you can base those up as a little swarm of their own. So maybe 6. So for every 3 troops, for every 30 clansmen you've enough to do a swarm of snow foxes, just to stretch out the Northern Alliance army a bit further. But I think those still hold up really nicely, even alongside the new sculpts. See there, the humans are a bit beefier, a bit tougher than the little elves, but you can't have everything. But there we go. That's the Northern Alliance army set from Mantic Games. So there we have it, Northern Alliance starter army for Kings of War. Really solid box. Obviously, the standouts are the new half-elf, both the Berserkers and the Icekin Hunters, and the Frostclaw Raiders. But the Clansmen set in there as well is a really solid unit with a lot of potential with different armament on the battlefield. Although I do really like the piercing 1 javelins. It's just how I roll. You can pick up resin additions for the Clansmen. So if you want your Clansmen to be huscarls or 200 weapons, you can pick those up from Mantic directly. Or if you're 3D printer, you can get the files for all of them, I think, on the Mantic Vault and My Mini Factory. So yeah, lot going on in that box. Really good start. And if you couple it with the Ambush starter set that I looked at previously, obviously it doubles up on the Elves and the Frostclaw Riders, but those 2 boxes in conjunction give you a really, really good way of starting. So you can sort of start with the Ambush set and then ramp up, add the Clansmen and move on from there. But let me know what you think of the army set below and whether or not you're a Kings of War player. And Clash of Kings, what did you think of that and what they've done with the Northern Alliance? Fun times, huh? Until next time, bye-bye.
Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.